for voting fraud. I have a friend who has told me that she received 6 ballots because she got married, she changed her name, and she moved. And this is incredible. If someone gets 6 ballots, that means that, but she probably can vote 6 times. And this is just unthinkable and also scary. Since everyone only has 1 vote, entitled to 1 vote, 1 person, 1 vote. And I hope the Board of Elections will make sure this happens and eliminate mass mailing of ballots in the future and prevent future voting fraud. And also, I used to work in a large corporation in IT department. I know I write softwares, so I know how easily it is to manipulate data just by changing a few codes. The Dominion machine in our voting system is not safe, and it cannot be trusted because it so easily can be manipulated. And not only that, the Dominion machine costs us a lot of money to use that equipment. And I hope the Board of Election will eliminate Dominion machine from our voting system, as well as make sure that we no longer do mass mailing of ballots during our voting period. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Mao. Yes, Ms. Rosman, go right ahead.
Hello, Christine Rosman. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. There was a recent posting on the Cobb County job board for a forklift operator for elections, and I was just kind of confused because I thought that there were, like, you all fell under like EEOC rulings where you had to, in addition to just keeping it right inside the family of Cobb County employees, that it had to be also available to other people too. And I just was curious about that because I think that there's some issue there, but also I was curious if that was also what you were going to do with the replacement of Ms. Evler's position when she retires, and if that job is going to be posted to the community or just to Board of Elections people, or I'm sorry, not Board of Elections, elections employees. Is it going to be just, and actually I think my first question had to do with, was that job available to all Cobb County employees or just to Cobb elections employees? So just wanted some clarification on that. And then also would Janine's replacement also be available to the whole community? Because I think there's not a lot of DEI, that diversity, equity, inclusion, when it comes to elections, that office, because I think it's predominantly all Democrats and not Republicans, and so I'm just curious if that would be available to other people other than just elections people and just people that have worked for Cobb County, because it is kind of real out of balance with Republicans and Democrats. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rossman. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, the approval of our January 9th meeting minutes. The minutes were circulated prior to the meeting. Does anyone have any proposed revisions or comments with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you both. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve our January 9th meeting minutes. All those in favor? There is no opposition. The motion passes. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, new business. who will be presenting on
The
behalf?
the first two items, Ms. Kara Pringle, Elections Division Manager, will present.
Okay.
And the third item, C, Erica Hamilton, the Registration Manager, will present.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Evelyn.
Good afternoon, Board. Okay, so I have two agenda items for you. The first one will be for Bernie 01. And in our continued efforts to removing polling locations from our school, the election staff is recommending that Bernie 01 be replaced by Bethany United Methodist Church. The polling location has 2,610 registered voters at the time, is 1.6 miles away from Bernie 01. And that's what I have on that one.
Okay. Thank you. You can go ahead and
Okay.
present the next one.
All right, so then with that being said, we have Bernie 02. Bernie 02 at C. Freeman Pool Senior Center recently had a major flooding and experienced a lot of water damage. Therefore, the polling location will not be able to accommodate us for the March and the April runoff, if there is one. And so with that, if the board approves the first agenda to replace Bernie Elementary with Bethany United Methodist Church, then we would want to house C. Freeman Pool location at Bethany.
And that's a temporary location.
That would be a
change.
temporary location, yes. And right,
I'm sorry.
I thought I heard something.
Was that, like, I was looking at Kara, so I didn't, did that come from you? No, okay. I would just ask if there are comments to be made that we not make them, that it's not, public comment has concluded at this time. So go ahead, Ms. Burns.
Okay, and so at Bernie 02, which right now is at the C. Freeman Pool Senior Center, there are 3,675 active voters. At Bethany United Methodist Church, there is adequate enough parking for the facility. We will post signs 7 days before the election, and first-class letters will go out to this particular precinct.
Okay. And apologies, what was the number of voters that are currently assigned to the C. Freeman Pool Senior Center?
It's 3,675.
3,600. Okay. So we have no concern to the extent that the board approves item A on the agenda, that's 2,610 registered voters there, with
Yes.
another 3,675 all being accommodated at Bethany United Methodist Church.
Yes, it's correct.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification, during the temporary move for Bernie 02, Bernie 01 is not part of the Mableton City, so
Okay.
those voters will not be there
Okay.
on March and April election days.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Janine. Yes.
Okay. Was there anything further with regard to items A and B on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. Stephen, I think you had a question?
Well, I was going to ask if they were going to be separate, in separate rooms, but then if they're not
Janine
going to be
answered.
there,
Okay.
that's a...
Yes. So it'll just be the one precinct for
Right,
March.
Right. Now, is that whole precinct within the Mableton city limits?
It is inside.
It is?
Yes, it
inside?
is. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Ready? Okay, I apologize, are there any additional questions for Ms. Pringle? No? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. I am coming to request that the Board change the polling location of the Norton Park 01 voters to Mableton 04 for the City of Mableton's election. Currently, there are about roughly 15 voters in Norton Park that would be in that Mableton 04 area, and so we thought it would not be a good liability for the taxpayers to have that precinct open for only roughly 15 voters, and also to protect the integrity of the secret ballot. So we're asking that you place Norton Park, those 15 voters, into Mapleton 04.
Okay. And how are we proposing to advise these 15 registered voters that would generally be voting at Norton Park 01 that they will vote at Mapleton 04?
We'll be sending out first-class letters in the next week, and also a precinct card will go out, as well as put something on our website.
Okay. Presumably, we also should place something in the newsletters that the commissioner sends out, just so it's clear. Yeah, okay. I just want to take every effort to ensure, I mean, yeah, it's a small number of individuals or registered voters that are impacted, but as was suggested earlier during public comment, everyone's vote counts, 1 vote per person. We want to be certain that we're not disenfranchising these 15 people or our registered voters by moving them. Does anyone else have questions for Ms. Hamilton? Yes.
Well, I just had a question. If there are 15 voters in Mapleton out of that precinct, was that a mistake? I mean, was that somebody slipped the pen and drew those people in?
They don't draw the city boundaries. If they didn't draw the city boundaries in that bill, taking into consideration precinct boundaries.
Good point.
Right. And that seems to be more of a question to be taken up with the legislators.
Oh, yes, I agree. It just
Okay.
seems so crazy that they would have split those 15 voters and I mean, I know it's controversial among some groups, but that's clearly a mistake, and nothing we can do about it, but, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. Anything further for Ms. Hamilton? Thank you. Okay. Item D, under new business, is with respect to the March advance voting schedule. I think we'll go ahead and I would like to propose that we go ahead and take up the initial 3 agenda items, as they all are related to changes to polling locations. So I'd like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we do it in one motion or 3?
I would suggest that we do them individually, if you don't mind. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed change of the polling location for precinct Bernie 01 to Bethany United Methodist Church from the Bernie Elementary School.
So moved.
Thank you, Pat. I believe, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the polling location change for Bernie 01. All those in favor? There's no opposition. The motion passes. Having approved item number or letter A, that's the reason why I wanted to take them separately, because B was predicated upon the approval of A. B, so I'll entertain a motion for the temporary change of Bernie 02 to the Bethany United Methodist Church, given the damage, the water damage at C. Freeman Pool Senior Center. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. All of those in favor? The motion, there is no opposition. The motion passes. And then with respect to the final item on new business related to polling locations or changes, I'll entertain a motion to identify or approve the precinct boundary for Norton Park 01 to consolidate voters such that they will vote at Mapleton 04 in this upcoming City of Mapleton election. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gartland. It's been moved and properly seconded to change the precinct boundary for Norton Park 01. All those in favor? There is no opposition. The motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Eveler, the March advance voting schedule?
Yes, hi, thank you. All right, in your, excuse me, in your agenda, there is our proposed advance voting schedule for the Mableton election. Just to back up a little bit, when we're doing city elections, we contract with the cities. They provide us a location. There's usually only one location in the city that they've cleared off their schedule for, and we conduct advance voting sort of at their request in their budget for what they believe they want to provide. Obviously, it's a different situation this time because we don't have a city government yet, so we are making those decisions, and it is a county expense at this point. So what we have here for you is, again, our proposed schedule. We decided that given the large area that we're covering, the large number of voters in Mableton, that we would go ahead and do 2 locations, even though, like I said, we normally just do 1 per city. In this case, we went with the Mabel House Arts Center and the South Cobb Community Center. If you, thank you, CP, if you would also put up that map that I had. Yeah, so you can see that they are basically really close to each other. We searched for a location in the southern area of the Mableton city. We were not able to schedule the South Cobb Rec Center, and we searched for something over in the northeast area. We were not able to get Thompson Community Center, and there aren't really a lot of other facilities in this region. So we went ahead and went with them, the 2 that are centrally located. They're very close to each other, but they were the best facilities as far as size and parking, and if, you know, one is overflowing with people, that folks can go to the other one and see if the wait time is less there. So even though they're both very close to each other, which is not ideal, we do like to separate them as much as possible. At least it should have the capacity to handle the number of voters. And our proposal, I think there were some board members that wanted to, you know, talk about the times, and we're certainly, you know, whatever the board decides, but we went in with Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, both Saturdays that are required at 9 to 5. So that, oh, and the only other thing I wanted to mention is we decided that it would be advantageous to have a drop box in both locations. There was, you know, because we can have up to 6, really, but we can have 1 at each of the locations without being afoul of the regulations. So.
Sure. So I know, Ms. Eveler, you and I have exchanged emails with regard to the proposal, and just for the full edification of everyone on the board, Mabel House Art Center has not previously been an advance in-person polling place, correct?
That's correct. We would like to move the voting in that area from the library to the Mabel House Art Center on an ongoing basis, due to the fact that it just has a better flow with an exterior entrance door that's separate from the, in the case of the library, the regular entrance that patrons use. And it's a little bit bigger room. It'll allow us to have about 4 more voting units than at the library. So, you know, a number of reasons, more parking, et cetera. We want to move in that direction for all ongoing elections, of course, at your discretion and vote and approval. But this being the first election in Mableton, it's kind of a new jurisdiction. We thought it would be a good use of this as a smaller election to start having that at that location.
Mm-hmm. So did we inquire with the South Cobb Library?
Yes, we are booked there if the board chooses. We still have that reserved. But we are, presenting the fact that we believe that the Mabel House Arts Center is a better location.
Right. And I don't dispute, based upon the information that's been shared in our email exchange, as well as during, your comments, that it's a better location. I guess my concern is that these voters in this area are very accustomed, good, better, and different, with its limitations, to voting at the South Cobb Library. And given the considerable amount of discourse around this particular election, I personally am hesitant to make a change from a location that this community and these voters are accustomed to going to.
I understand that, but advanced voting locations do not stay from election to election. They're set new each election. So the fact that we've been using that location, there isn't a lot of other facilities in this area, and we've been able to schedule it. The library folks have been fantastic with us. Parks has been great too, and we've got a proposal here for 2 Parks locations. But again, it's not a continuing use of the same facilities. That's not what advanced voting is. It's set for each election.
I'm well aware of that. However, notwithstanding the fact that there is nothing that legally requires us to have the same locations all the time, we consistently do use some of the same locations all the time. Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Eveler with respect to this?
I dig it. But what you're proposing is to move early voting, not permanently, but generally to the Mabel House. So it's a better facility, more space, more parking, and it's well-known in the community. It's not like it's some obscure.
I'm not suggesting that it is obscure, but what it is not well known for is being a voting or a polling location. That was my point.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, it's a 0.2 miles from each other. You can pretty much see the other facility from where you stand.
For me, it's not so much a matter
I
of,
understand.
it could be 0.5 miles. It's just, folks have voting trends or voting habits. They're good, bad, or indifferent. Folks get into a habit of going to a particular place. They may not even check. So, and that's on them. I understand that they should, but that being the case, I have a concern with relocation, especially in light of all of the, as I noted, the discourse around this particular election. So, but obviously I welcome the comments of anyone else on the board.
I was going to ask about the distance.
Yes.
As well, and I think you already shared that. And then my next question has to do with the times.
Yes.
And the fact that we have an 8 until 6, and then we have 9 to 5 on the Saturday, but I just didn't. I guess we talk so much about consistency and what we communicate to our voters, especially since we're making other changes. You're suggesting other changes, so I just had a question about why we didn't have the same hours.
You're asking why we didn't choose 7 to 7? And
Well, perhaps 7 to 7, but even the difference between the Monday through Friday and the Saturday.
I think we have always had a different schedule on Monday through
Fridays.
Friday and Saturdays. Again, we're looking at this as a municipal election, which we have traditionally treated as a small election. And so other than I think it was the last municipal election where this board asked us to do 7 to 7, we have generally done shorter hours for municipals.
That's good. Is there a minimum time for early voting for special elections?
It's not necessarily for special elections, but 9 to 4, I think is the minimum.
No, I'm sorry,
On
the number of
Saturdays.
days. I mean,
The days are required.
Yeah.
The days are required. So the 3 weeks for special elections and 2 Saturdays is the same.
Well, just as a comment, I mean, we have to follow the law, but it seems like we should have a standard for big elections and for special elections. And certainly big elections, we need every day that we can get and every hour we can get to handle the volume. On the other hand, for special elections, it seems to me like we might be able to have like a week instead of 3 weeks, but that's not, if that's not what the law allows, then it doesn't matter. But personally, I would rather see for runoff elections, 7-day election, early voting from Saturday to Friday, including Sunday, and same for special elections. And then for general elections and big primaries, it's back to as much as we can get. But so it does require 3 weeks even for a special election.
Yes, it does. And that was discussed in the legislature during the SB 202 hearings as well, as you mentioned, for shorter timeframes for smaller special elections.
Right.
And it sounds like the members of our General Assembly opted for something different.
Right.
Okay.
So in this case, we currently have no Sundays for this special election.
That is correct.
You give them, 3 weeks here?
I know, but there are people who only can come to vote on Sunday. And that's why I was thinking in terms of shortening the overall time, but
Adding Sunday on?
adding Sunday on.
Cut it down to 2 weeks and have Sunday.
I'd be willing to get to 1 week and have Sunday, but
Okay.
that's not possible because it's not.
I make a motion, we go with this.
I believe Ms. Mossbacher had
I'm
a
sorry.
comment.
I apologize.
Can you tell us exactly how many active registered voters there are in the city of Mapleton?
I believe it's active registered, I think it's around 48 or 49,000, and then with inactive, it's like 52,000.
I'm sorry, you said 48 to 49,000 active
Correct.
registered voters.
Right.
And then the 52,000 number would be
Would-
inclusive
including
of the inactive.
right.
Okay.
My main concern, I think, obviously, we're sort of bound by the 3 weeks, but I really think 7 to 7, to me, gives people, as a working parent myself, I feel like those hours, being inclusive and being consistent through the county, are really important. And it's consistent with what we've been doing, so I just feel like that messaging, even just as somebody who's educating people, hey, the polls are open from 7 to 7, early vote is open from 7 to 7. I like that messaging. I don't know how everybody else feels, but for me, weekday 7 to 7 is my own personal priority. I think it resonates with a lot of voters, and people are back to work in a lot of ways now, and that's a trafficy time, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. That's when people are on their way to work to get somewhere. So I like that 7 to 7 personally. I don't know where everybody else stands, but that would be my preference to see the coverage be consistent.
Well, I do agree in as much that we've spoken consistently, or at least this board has spoken consistently about consistency. And, there being a certain expectation, or at least an anticipation from our voters, and meeting that anticipation that the polls are open these days at these times. And again, I perhaps am stressing it, beyond more so than I should, but with the discourse that's been, had and continues to be had around this particular election, I hesitate to change what we have done in prior municipal elections as far as changing the time. And I obviously prepare to be overruled with respect to the location. So, yes.
All right, so what you're saying in prior, we've been 7 to 7?
Ms. Eveler just confirmed that we did that with the last municipal election. This board did.
Yeah, Excuse me, I believe the board did overrule us with the times on that one as well. And so in the last municipal election, the board gave us the edict to do 7 to 7, but prior to that, we had not.
It was 8,
But
yeah.
if that's the direction we're going, then.
Right. And I do believe that that is the direction this board is going, yes. I do believe that that's the case. So is there a motion that anyone would like to put forth?
I say we leave it like it is. Let's go with it.
Is that your motion? Is there a second to the motion? So Pat has moved that we adopt this advanced in-person voting, these voting options as presented by Ms. Evler and her staff, or Director Evler and her staff. Is there a second? The motion fails for want of a second. So let's take this in two pieces. Since we have spoken about it, I assume, do you want to put forth a motion, Pat, with regard to the locations? Because it seems like perhaps the locations can be agreed upon and it's the times that's causing the issue.
Well, no, that's part of it. I mean, hey, it's just what we have. This
I
is
understand, but that motion has
perfect. Okay, well, I'll
unfortunately
make the
failed.
motion that we keep the 2 locations
As proposed
as
by
proposed.
Ms. Evler. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that all the in-person advanced voting options for the special election will be the Mabel House Arts Center and the South Cobb Community Center. All those in favor? So we're halfway there. The motion passes. There is no opposition. So then with respect to the times, is there a motion to be put forth?
I would move to have the weekdays from 7 to 7 and on the Saturdays 8 to 5 for the times. I think that's consistent with what we've done, what we've been doing, the 7 to 7 and 8 to 5 on the Saturdays.
8 to 5 on Saturdays.
8 to 5 on Saturdays and 7 to 7 is what I believe has been consistent with what we've been offering. That's my motion for times. Weekdays 7 to 7, Saturdays 8 to 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
I want to take a point of order for discussion, just to confirm that. I do not have the prior schedule in front of me, so with respect to Saturdays.
I don't have it as well. so I
Okay.
don't know.
I think it's, to the extent, and I don't disbelieve you, Ms. Mosbacher, I just want to be certain that, again, in the interest of consistency, and that's what we said that we're doing, to pull the prior advance in person times, to be clear here. I should write, if I have my laptop, I can find this more quickly.
What election do you want to look at?
I was trying to pull the last municipal election. That would have been in 2021. 2020, fall of 2021, November of 2021. That's why I was trying to pull up the agenda from either the September or October meeting, because I would have presumed that that's when we would have approved it. I can't pull this up on my phone. I have some of the old meeting minutes, but not all of them. Okay.
Okay, so Monday, oops, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Monday through Friday, we go 8 to 6, or is that 7 to 7?
Ms. Mausbacher's motion was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and her motion was for Saturday from 8 to,
Was from 8 to 5.
8 to 5.
I'm confident that that's what it's been. I don't know if that's exactly what we did for the municipal, though. I know that's what we did prior, the last couple of elections.
So essentially expanding an additional 2 hours Monday through Friday and an additional hour on Saturdays.
Okay, but let me look. 2021, I think we said.
Yes.
She paying the bill. She paying the bill.
I am presuming it would have been either the September 13th meeting. Yeah, most likely the September 13th meeting. We would have already approved it by the October 11th meeting in 2021. You know what, I'm just gonna go out to the website and pull the agenda.
Staff just emailed me the 2021 November schedule, and it was 9 to 5 on Saturdays and 7 to 7 on weekdays.
Okay,
So then
what I recall.
do you want me to amend?
You want to amend your motion?
I will, yeah. So I'll amend the motion to be 7 to 7 Monday through Friday and 9 to 5 on the Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Is there is there a second to the amended motion?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the advance in-person voting times for Monday through Friday, 7 to 7 p.m., and Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Gartland, I note your opposition. The motion passes 4-1. Okay. Thank you. I don't believe that there is any old business to take up. No. I will open it up for board member comments at this time.
I'd like to make a statement about Good Garbage implementation. This is day one. And could you give us a summary review of exactly what it is and how it should enhance our elections statewide?
Certainly. The Secretary of State's office has been working for quite a while to develop a new voter registration information management system. And the rollout started today. This was the first day of the new system. It is called Jarvis. It's spelled G-A-R-V-I-S. I don't know why, but anyway, it is hopefully going to be a much more robust system and have an easier user interface. Obviously, we have a huge learning curve, so it's not easier right now. And we are in the middle of redistricting for the Mableton City and adding in the council districts, because when we had the referendum, we only needed to identify the voters within the boundaries of Mableton. And now we have to identify each of the council districts. And so being that we were in the midst of that project when the implementation rolled over, we don't have that yet completed. And right now, it's not quite functioning correctly for redistricting, so we're having a little struggle with that. But again, it's meant to be a new user interface that is much easier for people to understand and work with.
Do you have anything else? Do you have any additional questions? I do. Ms. Evler, you made mention of the fact that it is not quite working as well as I believe perhaps Secretary of State and all of us would want for it too, and so that it being the Jarvis system. And if you could just share what concerns or issues you and your staff are finding in working with it, I think that would be helpful, at least it would be for me.
Yes, well, it's, not all functionality is working yet, and they did send us an email globally that there were certain workflows that we should start using immediately, and then in a few days, as they shake those, elementary workflows out, that we move on to more complex workflows that we can then start using, so that they can sort of minimize the reports of issues and fix the smaller things first. But we are in a time frame where we have to do this districting because we have this election coming up. We also need it to pull the list of voters to send these first-class letters to that we would like to send out. So we jumped into a more complex workflow, which is redistricting, and it is not letting us in. We haven't been able to go into it at all. So it may be that they're just kind of locking that down until, like I said, it's more of a phased approach, that they do some workflows first and then they move on to more complex workflows that open up. But everybody's really busy up at the Secretary of State's office, so it being the first day statewide of a new system. So we haven't really been able to get their attention yet and find out what we should be doing to get to the point that we need to get to.
Okay. Well, what can this board do to assist in that? Obviously, we have to administer this election. We're obviously relegated to using the system that the Secretary of State has implemented, and notwithstanding the fact that rolling up their functionality is obviously on their timetable, there are things that this office needs to accomplish in a different timetable to accommodate this election. So that my ask of you is, what can we do to support you in this?
Well, we'll certainly let you know if there's action that we need the board to take. At this point, again, it's day one, so we're kind of letting the process go and work. We are targeting that we would be able to complete the work by the end of this week. If that becomes a jeopardy situation, we would certainly report back.
Okay, so just to pair it back to you, what I believe that I heard is that the redistricting that needs to take place, you're looking at having the opportunity or the ability to start that by the end of the week. And in the event that you cannot, due to limitations on the Jarvis system and the availability of functionality with it, you'll then let this board know perhaps a week from today?
Yes.
If you're unable to
Sure.
to start the process.
We'll keep you posted either way.
Okay,
Yeah.
of course. Yes, sir.
The question, is the old system still available?
It is not.
That would be a very nice alternative. Get through the redistricting and then pass the election, then change.
Yes, we did discuss that with the state, but we were not successful in that.
When you say you discussed it with the state, there was an ask made of them, so with respect to at least our county or these individuals, let the old system remain, or these voters, let the old system remain in place, and the state was not receptive to that?
Right.
It's unfortunate.
Well, then you could have two different systems
Oh,
working.
it's a bad idea in all respects.
Yeah.
Right.
Every alternative.
So,
It's-
okay. Anything further? Yes, sir.
Well, the only comment is that this is the system.
Your mic.
Turn your mic on.
Sorry.
This is the system that we started with last cycle, is it not?
There was another implementation attempt, I think it was in 2022, and I think it was in April.
Yeah. I recall it being
April.
March,
It was
April.
early.
And it was a rushed implementation because the 2022 elections were coming. And the Secretary of State's office was legitimately concerned that the ENET system, the old system, would not be able to handle the 22 elections.
Right.
That it would fail in the midst of it. So, they were trying to look at what's the better of the two bad options. And so they did attempt to implement it then, and they made the wise decision to back it back out again. They could have just, forced through it, and then we would have jeopardized the 22 elections. So they had all this extra time to work on it, so we expect it to work a lot better this time. But again, we are trying to do something that is not your regular day-to-day work. Redistricting doesn't happen all the time.
And just to be clear, I mean, the representatives that you've spoken with at the Secretary of State's office, they are aware that this county is administering an election at this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just say this, not in a facetious way, but in their view, there is always an election. Some counties always have an election, sometimes, multiple dates in a month, but every month has some election that they are managing in their systems. So that's not really a driving factor, I guess, because for the Secretary of State's office, they're always administering elections.
No, and I understand it's not a driving factor for them, but to the extent that, we are where we are in advance of this March 21st election and the redistricting, activities that you would not normally otherwise undertake or would have started to undertake at this point, at this juncture, prior to an election, you're unable to do so through no fault of our own, it, in my estimation, is problematic. So, okay. Is there anything further from anyone else? If not, I would be remiss, personally and as well as on behalf of this board, not to publicly thank you, Ms. Evler, Director Evler, for, I want to get it right, your 18 years of service to Cobb County, and specifically your 12 years of service as the director of our elections and registration office. And so I personally, again, you've assisted me having come on the board at the time that I did, and I greatly appreciate the partnership. You're fielding my questions, and the continued partnership we'll have at a minimum for the amount of time that you remain with us.
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
I would also be remiss if I did not address comments and questions that, and it's not often that I would do this, but it is obviously a significant gap that we will have when Ms. Evler retires. And I've been having conversations. I actually had a meeting on behalf of the board with Madam Chairwoman Cupid, Dr. McMorris, as well as Dr. Gibson, to talk about the process that we will undertake to identify our next director. And so the thought is that we're finalizing the job description. We intend to leverage the support and the assistance of a third-party executive search firm. So it's not common that we would address a question specifically raised in public comment. It was intended to address this anyway, but I'll be honest, Ms. Rossman, I have no idea what job you're suggesting that has only, for the forklift operator that was only posted internally. That is not something that's within my purview, but the position that is within the board's purview, that being the hiring of our next elections director. That job will be posted, and again, the review and recruitment process will be undertaken by a third party, therefore it will be public. So I don't know whether anyone else has questions or comments or concerns you want to raise with regard to the process. But again, this board will be intimately, obviously, supporting it, a part of it, familiar with it. No? If not, moving on to the next items on our agenda. I'm sorry, was there further board member comments? Nope. The noted item on the agenda, our next scheduled meetings will take place on March the 21st. Obviously, that is our election evening meeting, and then the following Monday will be our certification meeting. And please note, that meeting will take place at 3 p.m. Unfortunately, Mr. White is not available to join us today, so we won't take up any type of executive session. So unless there is anything further for the greater good or for the good of the order, we'll call our meeting adjourned at 3:52 p.m.